Pensé que era lo del mes.
Sí, no.
Oye, aquí está broadcast. Pensé que era lo del mes.
Sí, no. Mira, y no se les vaya a poner el nombre. Yo le puse traducción.
Sí, creo que fue por la verdad.
Hi, Sonia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Sonia.
Councilmember Luis Cabrera,
Present.
Councilmember Maria Cecilia Cruz,
Present.
Councilmember Tadeo Sael de la Hoya,
Present.
Councilmember Matias Rosales,
Present.
Councilmember Gloria Torres,
Present.
Councilmember Javier Vargas,
Present.
Mayor Nieves Raydell.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Sonia. First of all, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here in behalf of our council. Welcome. This is your house. So let's start this meeting. Can we stand up, Daniel? And lead us.
And shall republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to continue with items number 2, items for discussion only. Item number 2A, presentation followed by discussion and possible directions to staff on any and all matters regarding the wastewater treatment plant expansion project. Eulogio Vera, Public Works Director, and Mike Krebs, Vice President of PACE Advanced Waters Engineering.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Roughly about a year ago, we started with the analysis of the West Wastewater Treatment Plant, mainly with the trying to reach the goal of expanding. PACE is our consultant, and here tonight we have Mike Krebs Young Do, and Taylor Pierce, who are three engineers from PACE. And they're going to be presenting to us findings and recommendations from their analysis on the wastewater treatment plant. And mainly is we're expanding to keep up with growth and alleviating the diversion that's currently happening to the east plant. So Mike and your team, can you please start your presentation?
Thank you, Elohio. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's always a pleasure to be here with you to look at exciting things you have going on in your city and important things that need to be completed. We have, as Elohio has said, have prepared an evaluation of the waste plant for expansion. And we want to walk through some of that with you tonight to look at that. We want to look at the treatment process and the plant, identity and what's there. We want to look at the deficiencies that we found in the existing plant to improvements to address those efficiencies. With that, we need to look at ADQ's effluent requirements as this project would move forward. Conceptual expansion opportunities and alternates is part of what we looked at as well. 3 to 5 different alternates, and then look at a potential timeline. With this, we will look at capital cost as well as a 20-year life cycle cost, where you tie capital and operational costs in together and look at that over a 20-year period. We want to talk a little bit about opportunity that the city has in light of the Colorado River water cuts that were made to the state of Arizona, and you have water with your treatment facilities, with both facilities, about 2 million gallons of water a day. And so there's a potential opportunity to recognize that that's a tremendous commodity, and it's getting more and more valuable every single day because of things like the cuts that's going on in the Colorado River. And then we also want to just touch briefly on the impact of the Juan Sanchez lift station and the impact and the benefit to this project as well. So the first 6 slides we've presented to council a couple of years ago when we kind of got this initiated and got it started. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time, but I would welcome any questions as we go through this. It helps and to understand, because we're going through a lot of information, and the more we can talk about it, the more it's going to be helpful to digest and get through this information. This is basically flows of the West Plant, and the things that are important to really know from all of this data is that the existing West Plant and the flows that should go to the West Plant are currently between 1.3 and 1.5 MGD, a million gallons per day. And that's without diverting to the East Plant through the lift station. And that plant capacity is 1.5 million. So you're basically at capacity with that plant. That's really kind of how all of this got started. The East Plant is a capacity of 1 million, just to put it in perspective. And in total, between the 2.5 million gallons a day capacity, you're basically at 2 million gallons of flow going into those plants, just to give you an idea of where things are. So I mentioned the Juan Sanchez lift station, and the benefit of that plant currently, or that treatment plant, or excuse me, lift station right now is currently taking 300,000 to 400,000 gallons a day to the East Plant, taking it off the West Plant to the East Plant. And the maximum that could be sent is 500,000 to 600,000 gallons a day to that East Plant. The benefit is that this really helps with the improvements that will be made at the West Plant and enable improvements to be made there without spending extra millions of dollars to provide some capacity at that plant. If you didn't have this or the East Plant, you'd have to try to do everything there and it would be more expensive at the west plant. So this is just to show the population growth that we utilized during our evaluation of 4% growth, which was again utilized from a couple years ago. Obviously that will vary depending upon what happens. We know that you all are growing quickly. And then we took into consideration the zoning map and the open areas that are available for growth in the west part of the city. So again, I said I was going to go through those quickly and I did. And I just, are there any questions at this point? Okay.
Any questions from council? Not whatsoever? You're doing
Okay,
good.
Thank you. All
Thank you.
right. So then what we want to do then is to get into a little more detail on the technical side of what's there and what we found and what we're looking at and possibly suggesting moving forward. And with that, I want to turn it over to Young Doe, senior engineer at Pace. And also with me is Taylor Pierce, is a project manager at Pace. So just to introduce, I know Lohio had mentioned names, but now we have faces with the names. So,
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so I'll just go through this again, real quickly too, because we do have a lot of slides and we don't have a lot of time. So basically what you're seeing up here is just the existing SBR process. The SBR means the treatment process that the facility is using to treat the wastewater. And I won't go through the process, but it's basically just a map of the site, of the facility. We basically went through the whole entire facility and did the evaluation, looked at every single component of the wastewater treatment plant, the headworks, the secondary process, you know, we went through and ranked each of them, and not really rank, but just evaluate each one of them. And as you can see here, for the most part, the facility is meeting its capacity. It is able to do what it's supposed to do. There are some deficiencies that we found, but as you can see, it's being able to treat the wastewater that's coming in right now. So that's kind of the takeaway. And then what I'll do is, as we go through the next few slides, we'll talk about more of the major deficiencies that we saw, and just talk about that real quickly. Okay. So the main ones that we identified during the evaluation is mainly the screen, the influence screen. What we found there is that even though the screen has the capacity, the flow that's coming into the screen itself is diverted in a way that one basin is getting more flow than the other. So there's a total of mainly 3 basins, right? Basin 1 and 2, which is considered together, and then basin 3 and 4 are 2 separate basins. And so the flow is being overloaded to one side. And so there's some, the recommendation here is obviously later on when we make the upgrades, to modify the piping to allow all the basins to get the flow evenly. And then as far as the rest of the facility, most of it has to do more with either the structure component of it or some of the equipment. So for example, we spoke about the screen, the influent flow meter isn't functioning properly, so we can't really see the proper recording of the flow coming in. Both the SBR basins, the effluent pump stations, those components, we're seeing structural deterioration in some of the areas. And then, you know, so there's some issues we saw with the chlorine disinfection system, that, you know, with the piping being exposed and potentially damaging the equipment. And then in the digester, we also saw structural issues. And I'm going through that really quickly because in essence, all of these are issues that are concerning, but they do not impact the treatment component of the facility itself. And so, you know, at the end of the day, what we're basically saying is that the treatment plant is getting to the capacity that it was designed for. And so now, you know, with the growth of the city, what we recommend is to expand the facility into the next phase, which is 3 MGD. As far as all the other components we spoke about, the screens, the basins themselves, some of the equipment, those can be, you can wait on those and make those improvements as you upgrade the facility. It's essentially the quick summary of what we're showing here. And then, going back to what Mike was saying before, one of the benefits that the city has right now is the fact that you have the Juan Sanchez lift station, right? Because right now, if you're at the capacity, you're at 1.5 MGD, the city can only treat 1.5 MGD. For you to go in there and make any expansion, there's no way for you to divert the flow to make those improvements. So with the fact that you have the lift station, you can actually divert a third of that flow. And so going to the east side. And if you recall earlier, I said that the basins are divided into three, right? You have basin 1 and 2 that operates as one basin, basin 2, and then basin 3. So if you have the ability to divert 1/3 of your flow, that allows us to take 1/3 out and be able to go in there and do improvements to help expand the facility, right? And so that's the advantage that you have here, but that window is going to be closing soon as development increases in the city.
On the east side.
On the east side particularly, exactly, yeah. And so, with that, we, Eloy Hill asked us to look at the different expansion options. And so what we did was we looked at 5 different treatment processes that can be expanded at the facility. And of those 3, we selected the MLE process, the MBR process, and the SBR process to further expand on. The reason why we didn't select the other 2, the MBBR and the IFAS, is because it required additional infrastructure that was similar to the first 3. And so that just means that those 2 processes would just be more cost on top of those other process that we discussed there. The other thing to also kind of that we also have to look at is going back to what Mike spoke about in regards to the effluent and the effluent quality and the commodity that the effluent, that is really a commodity. And so when we looked at these options, we evaluated what type of effluent it was producing, how clean, and the benefits that you can get from it. So with in Arizona, all of the treatment plants that that we construct, we have to meet certain effluent requirements, and ADEQ requires BATCAT, which is best available demonstrated control technology. Now there's another effluent level that's a little bit higher than that. It's called Class A+, which is basically unrestricted reuse, that you can use the effluent for pretty much any unrestricted irrigation and things like that. And BATCAT is just one level below it. And so when we evaluate the different options here, we also looked into how we can transition it from just meeting BATCAT to actually meeting Class A+ as well, because the fact that this could be a commodity that the city can use in the future.
Just a couple things that I want to just hopefully help understand. During the evaluation, the reason we spend the time to look at what you have at the plant right now, our approach is always to look at how can we take that and utilize it. Not just, if it's done, we throw it away. But the idea is to try to say, what can we reuse the basins instead of building new ones? What can we reuse? And so that makes it much more cost effective in the, in the expansion and how we approach the project and things like that. So it's just the mentality we have, because there's no reason, if there's an asset there, let's use it, is what I'm trying to say. And then just a comment on the water. We've done some analysis on other projects where the value of effluent on 8 different communities that we looked at, ranging from Tucson to Flagstaff and then in the Phoenix area, the value of the effluent is varied from about $300 an acre foot to almost $1,000 an acre foot. And an acre foot is 325,000 gallons, about 325,000 gallons. So if I did it in my head earlier, if you have 2 million gallons, that is 3 acre feet a day, about. And if you take that over the whole year, you've got almost 1,000 acre feet a year that could be sold, is kind of where we're coming from as a additional revenue that could be utilized for long term. So obviously you have to have the right buyer and, you know, all of that type of stuff. But the concept is that to get yourself in a position, I know that in talking to Lohio, there's been other opportunities where you've had industries that are interested in coming and being in San Luis, but they were concerned maybe about the water or the, you know, wastewater or whatever. Here's an opportunity where you can offer them 2 million gallons a day at this Class A plus quality. So just to keep in mind as we're going through this. So thank you. John, go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. And so, just to go real quickly again, because I know we don't have a lot of time. So I'm gonna go through the three options that we looked at. The first one is the MLE. MLE stands for Modified Looked At Edinger Process. And the pros and cons of these concepts. So here we're expanding the facility by adding a couple of clarifiers. But the pros here is that it's continuous flow activated sludge. It doesn't have a patent process, so it's you know, the cost is a lot lower. The cons to this process is that it has a higher energy consumption. It's a different treatment process than what the operators are used to right now. What they are operating right now is what we call an SBR, a sequential batch reactor. And then it also has a higher cost when you expand further into phases 4 and 5, which is the 4.5 MGD and the 6 MGD. And then the other thing is that it also has a larger land area requirement.
So just to clarify on that, part of what our proposal and the interest was from the city and Elohio is that we look at not just the first expansion, but we look at 2 additional expansions beyond that. Just so that you kind of have an idea in your pocket that if a developer does come and wants to do something and you have to expand, it's like, okay, we have a plan, here's the plan, and here's how much, here's what the costs look like in 2022. So that was really the main reason. Yes, ma'am.
I got a question. When you said expansions, 2 more expansion, time frame?
How long does that take?
No,
Until you would need it?
yes.
Based on current growth, over 20 years, until you would need that. But if things change with development or land use, zoning, stuff like that, can really accelerate that schedule. But based on that first evaluation we did over 2 years ago, you're 20 years before you run out of the 3.
Mayor, also, one of the reasons that this was added to their scope was, in the recent past, within the last 5 years, we've received industries that have been interested in San Luis. And one of the requirements, or one of the big requirements, was both water and wastewater. So at least this is covering the wastewater aspect of it. And some of the industries that were interested, they were requiring somewhere to treat up to 3 million gallons a day. So if we were to suddenly get one of these industries, I mean, this will provide us a base, you know, for discussion with that industry. You know, this is what we think it'll cost to go to the next expansion. If we just continue with the current growth rate, that's sort of what Taylor is mentioning, you know, it'll be 20 years at the current rate. But we did get several industries that were interested, but needed quite a bit of a capacity for wastewater. And with this, we have a number 2 this could talk to them with.
Any questions?
And how, yes, I have a question, Mayor. And how soon can, if, say, an industry comes and we need to upgrade into another phase, what's the timing in that process?
Yeah, and they'll discuss a little bit on this first phase of expansion, what it'll take. But what we've discussed internally in the past is, let's say that somebody wants to come in and they have all the permitting process on their end as well to go through design and everything else. So we think that within 1.5 to 3 years, Mike mentioned right before I started talking, but we think that at least they know upfront how much it'll cost, and they can probably partner with the city to accomplish that. And the expansion time will probably be parallel to their development time as well. So I think it just varies, but that's a rough estimate, 1.5 to 3 years.
And just to clarify, I was saying phases 3 and 4 and 5, but I meant phases 2, 3, and 4. The 2 is associated with the next expansion, which is 3 MGD. And then phases 3 is the 4.5 MGD, and the phase 4 would be the 6 MGD. And so what we're seeing here is an example of how we would expand the MLE process from the 3 MGD to 4.5, and then to 6 MGD. So, sorry. Taylor, can you talk about this real quickly, just because I'm talking up a little bit.
Me earlier. So this is the SBR expansion option, and the reason we considered this is because this is the type of treatment that your operators are familiar with. This is what you have out at both the east and west facility right now. So the familiarity is there. It would not take additional training to get anyone up to speed to use this type of process. However, it does take a lot of structural construction to build this type of plant. You've ran out of capacity at the existing basins, so you're building new basins from phase 2 and then adding to it on phase 3 and phase 4. So it has the highest capital cost out of all of the options that we considered, but it is the one that you guys are most familiar with. SBRs are proprietary in that it fills, decants, and goes through a proprietary process. So that all has to be purchased through a manufacturer. And so there is a markup on some equipment when you buy that. It does take up a larger chunk of land, and you do have space available at the facility. So it's not necessarily a point of concern immediately, but as you continue to grow, you will start to eat into what's available there.
Yeah, and then the last option here is MBR, which is the membrane bioreactor. And so, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the last option here is the MBR, the membrane bioreactor. And the pros to this is it produces the highest effluent quality. And I did mention this earlier in the last two options, is that the MBR is a microfiltration process, and the effluent that comes out of it is extremely high quality, a lot higher quality than the Class A+ and the bag cap that was required by ADEQ. Now, the other two options can get up to Class A+ if you add in filtration, but then add in tertiary filtration, but that just means that you're adding more additional capital costs. The MBR itself is inherently a microfiltration process, and so therefore it doesn't need any additional filtration. And so, so again, the pros to that is the highest effluent quality of all of the options. It also has the smallest footprint. As you can see here, the expansion doesn't go anywhere outside of the immediate footprint of the existing SBR, with the exception if you go to the last phase of the expansion, the 6 MGD expansion. Otherwise, all of the membranes can be located and installed within one of the existing basin. And so a very small footprint. It has the simplest biological treatment to operate, even though it's a different process than the SBR. The activated sludge here, because it's being filtered, doesn't require the sludge to, the concerns with the sludge condition is much less than regular activated sludge. It's a little more technical, but in other words, it's easier to operate than an SBR, for example, right? Simplest expansion with the lowest cost for future phases, and then also the shortest construction schedule because we're not building outside of the footprint. The cons to this is that it does have a slightly higher operating cost. It's a different treatment than the SBR, so there's going to be some training and things that the operator would need to be retrained on. And then it does also require a more robust headworks, which is something that is needed for the process, which adds to the cost of the system.
So, again, to go back to your question about how long does it take once, let's say an industry comes here and wants to expand. And that, as he mentioned, that last option is one that would probably be able to be done at a more accelerated rate than one of the other options because of all of the added basins that the other options would need. Or this one, you're utilizing the existing basins that are already there at the plant you're just populating them with membranes and pumps and the equipment inside the tank. Does that make sense?
And so that's one of the benefits of this option is the much shorter construction schedule. And so in this slide right here is a summary of the, I'm sorry, this,
If you wanted to use that.
pretty fancy there.
Yeah, I just let-
So, so here's a summary of the costs of the different options. And so what we have here is the actual cost of the process itself. And then we also have, to make it an apples to apples comparison, we had some of the process that wasn't the microfiltration. We added filters on it so that you can see the cost and compare that. So here for the phase two, the 3 MGD expansion, the MLE process has the lowest cost, followed by the MBR. There's about $1 million difference, and then the SBR has the highest cost. Now, once you add in the filters for the MLE and the SBR, obviously the MBR then becomes the lowest cost. So, so again, it's that effluent quality that we're trying to highlight here. And then as you go to the future expansion to 4.5 and 6 MGD, the MBR actually has the lowest capital cost because, again, it has the shortest construction schedule. All you have to do is populate the basin that's already there. So it makes it a lot simpler and cost effective. Any question on the cost? Oops, I went the wrong way. No.
Any questions?
Okay,
Go back to the previous slide. On the cons, is it slightly higher operating cost, percentage wise? Any idea? Is it 10% higher, 15?
well, as far as overall.
The
overall-
the operating cost.
The operating cost,
Right.
it's just a slightly higher than the SBR, yeah.
But what's slightly?
Probably
2,
like
3?
within
Less
10%,
Less than
10?
10
Yeah.
or less.
within the 10%. Yeah. So, let me just go to the next one. here. Yeah. And so here is what this right here is the 20-year life cycle cost in present value. So this is for the 3 MGD expansion only. And what we show here is that, and again, this is not all of the operating costs, right? Not all of the costs associated with the facility because we're only looking at the differential. In other words, we're really at the conceptual stage. We haven't gotten every single equipment, every single component of the design. So it's hard to kind of identify that O&M cost. But in essence, what we're seeing here is that the MLE has, we have different costs associated with energy, different costs associated with placement. And then when you take those differential costs and you do a life cycle cost, we find that the MLE is still the lowest cost from a life cycle standpoint, but the MBR is just slightly higher than that. And then the SBR is still the highest just because the SBR has the highest capital cost. So when you life cycle cost takes into account capital costs to us O&M.
It's important to talk just a little bit more about it's difficult to compare the MLE and the MBR and the SBR because of water quality. I'm just trying to make sure that everybody understands when we look at these costs and you compare just the MLE without the filters and the SBR without the filters, it's really not even the same water quality that you're getting out of the MBR or the SBR with the filters or the MLE with the filters. So the filters were added in those other two to try to give a better comparison with water quality to the MBR. Does that make sense?
And so now we move to the recommendations.
Okay. So again, recommendations, the main one is to move forward with, and we're suggesting the MBR option to expand that east or the west plant from 1.5 to 3.0. Again, in light of the fact that the current capacity is at 1.5 million, and if you just look at the west side, you're bumping up against the capacity. Unfortunately, you have the blessing of the lift station that enables you to take some of that load off of the west plant. So that's a really huge benefit for that reason, as well as for the construction of this project. It will be very important. And we would say that be looking for a design. The next step would be to put together a design proposal to do the work and get that design moving forward, and a projected schedule. So we would look at design would be a year, 18 months, 12 months to 18 months, and then construction with the bidding process again would be about the same time frame, about 18 months. And it's obviously that those are conservative, and so we think we can condense that, but we understand the situation where the city is with this, and we know we need to get it done as quickly as possible.
I have two questions. This is a turnkey, like when you give the city a price, are you gonna be in charge of permits and everything else, the engineering? When I say turnkey, is like.
Yeah. I guess I need to clarify it. No construction is involved with this proposal. This is a proposal to design, to get permitting, to observe construction, to put it out to bid, which I left out of the list there, but to put the project out to bid to contractors. And that's really what the engineering side of it would be.
Okay,
Okay. And so,
I got it. Thank you.
because
And-
we have to follow the procurement regs of the, of the city on that.
Great. My second question, can this go solar? Like, one of the biggest costs to operate this is the electricity. It's highly expensive.
Yes, yes. And so we actually have put some solar panels at two wastewater plants and one water facility, Douglas and Bisbee. And that was at a time period where APS was much more friendly to solar. And so to actually, and we just have to go through another analysis, but actually going through the analysis without, they had incentives like crazy for businesses and things like that, because they were trying to get panels in, and they've got enough panels in at that time frame, so they backed off of their incentives. And it was really those incentives that made the solar attractive. But we can look at that, and it's definitely something that we can evaluate and see if it makes sense.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have another question. So during the construction phase, if we were to go with the MBR, what type of issues can occur during the construction that can affect the city and the residents?
That can
Since we
affect
are,
us.
like, since we're gonna be using one of the ones that's almost like a capacity, and we're gonna be, you said between the three, we're gonna be shutting one down to be able to get it to the expansion. Can there be any issues that would delay the project, or that would affect the community, as in like, the wastewater and the water that we need?
Okay. So, I mean, with the last evaluation we had looked at, and we've always been concerned of the growth. To me, the biggest thing is the growth on the east side. Right now, that plant has about 500,000 gallons a day. And so we can transfer about 500,000 gallons a day to that facility to enable the construction. And so as that growth gets moving on the east side of the city, that 500,000 gallons a day will be consumed. And, it's kind of, we're not really sure exactly what that rate is until it happens, and
I
'cause
just
of
don't
the-
want a
Go
local
ahead.
coming up here and telling us, hey, we can't be flushing toilets anymore for a whole week. So it's like, I would just being cautious about it.
Yeah, I think, and just for clarification, I think the project wouldn't be hindering the residents. I think if we were to delay this or impacts on schedule, it'll just, maybe the cost will be driven up. At the end of the day, we wouldn't be able to limit homeowners to not, flush only half the time. I mean, things should be business as usual, is the potential cost would go up. If we were to lose that capacity to divert over to the east wastewater treatment plant.
Madam Mayor, if I may. Just out of curiosity, the two options that were eliminated other than being less cost effective or a commodity, does quality play a part in eliminating them, or it just
Yeah, the first two.
the IFAS and the?
Oh, yeah. And so the IFAS and the MBBR would produce the same effluent quality as the MLE and the SBR. It won't be as high as the MBR. And the reason why we eliminated it was because the fact that it's gonna be very similar to the cost of the MLE. But it has additional equipment on top of it. So it just made it more expensive than the MLE already. So at that point, we knew that can be eliminated because it's just the cost was so much higher than the MLE itself. So in other words, it's very similar to the MLE, but it just had more proprietary equipment on top of it. And so, but as far as the effluent quality is similar to the MLE, if you add tertiary filters that can meet Class A+, but still that isn't as high as the MBR, the one that we're recommending here.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Mayor, one more, please.
Yes.
Mike, can we go back to the prior page? If we conduct a rate study on what we currently have on historical data, and if council decides to go the MBR route, and you're showing a maintenance increase, and then we're showing a 10% O&M, should we consider those two elements in a rate study as future costs?
Yeah. So first of all, just to clarify, the O&M that we shown here is just a differential between the process itself, not all the O&M. So there's chemical costs, there's labor costs, there's laboratory costs, all that have contributed to the O&M. This is just a differential. But yeah, once you do the rate study, you know, what we simply seen is that they do take O&M into account as part of the rate study.
But this is not a total that gets added on to your current.
Would hate to miss the boat if we don't consider your presentation.
Right. But I want to make sure on your question about the O&M, you don't take your current O&M and add these numbers to it.
No.
They're mixed.
I think, Ralph, to answer that, I think we wouldn't want to exclude it. So we wouldn't include the capital costs, and we would probably want further find two numbers from consultant to know what would be the additional operational costs, because I mean, not only will it be new to the city, it'll be new to operators. So we will need to learn more than what we know at this stage, but we would definitely want to include it.
Good.
Any more questions? Are we done with the presentation?
Yeah.
Well, Elohio?
Well, I think in summary, one of the big takeaways, I guess, from the presentation is the city has a decision to make, whether we want to eventually get into the reclaimed water business, which I think long-term is a good thing. Whether even if it's only for our parks, for our green areas, I mean, that's water bills for parks can get high, over the year. But that's one of the big benefits of membrane process. So that's just one thing that we eventually will have to make a decision, even beyond going this route, because then the city will eventually have to put in infrastructure to distribute this reclaimed water to wherever the users are. So that's just something that will come down the road as a decision.
If there's no more questions, I want to thank you on behalf of the city of San Luis, my council, the city administrator, city clerk. It's a great presentation. We're going to take it very seriously. It's under consideration, and We're gonna move forward in the near future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2B, discussion and possible directions to staff on any and all matters regarding the Parks, Paths, and Trail Master Plan. Jose Guzman, Director of Planning and Zoning.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. So this is a, I put this item on the agenda just to brief council, that we're working on the Parks, Paths, and Trail Master Plan. We're on the final stage for the adoption. We just need to take it to the commission and then to council. So I just wanted to bring it up to, city council for, like a heads up and give council time for the review of the draft, which is attached to the report. So basically we did some community meetings to get input from the community. How can I get the presentation? So as mentioned, the plan, it says the framework for the planning, maintenance, development, and rehabilitation of San Luis parks and recreation facilities, including multi-use pathways and bike lanes. It also provides an action plan for the implementation of projects, including potential funding opportunities. As part of the planning process, many information was analyzed, including previous plans and studies, demographic information. And once that data was reviewed, recommendation and implementation plan was recommended. So this is the planning process. It's in summary, it's basically just data collection, community engagement, the public hearings, and the adoption. As mentioned, the next step is to take it to the commission and city council, but I just wanted to present it to council to give council the opportunity and time to review the document. The presentation during the public hearing in February will be more extensive and more detailed.
Any questions? Because I do have a couple suggestions. Anybody on this plan? Please do.
So sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Hmm.
I think it's so important to our residents because some of the children ride to school in bicycles and there's not bike lanes and proper bike lanes for the children. And then apart from that, you know, there's people that like to have a way of getting physical, you know, having exercise, and biking is an excellent way of getting healthy. So I would love to see this move forward because it's important for our residents to have this option of traveling, not just in vehicles, but also on bikes.
Anybody else?
Madam Mayor, if I
Yes,
may.
please.
The financial analysis on your report mentions options, but not numbers. Is there an estimated number on cost?
I know that will be specific on the project. So if we have a big project on let's say a park, we will do like a master plan for that, the specific project. But we don't have like, for the bike lanes, we don't have a number for mile or anything like that, right?
And what happened to the bike lanes that the city spoke about a couple years ago?
The
When you started this process.
the retrofit program,
Uh-huh.
Polyworks added bike lanes to 6th Avenue, which is the picture right there,
Mhm.
and Avenue F.
Okay.
So any new restriping or anything or any new project, we added the bike lane.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, Mayor. I have some questions because of the stripes that are already in place. Some lead to nowhere. So is that gonna be addressed through this process?
Yeah, it will be part of
So,
the
for
plan.
example, okay. Because I know the ones that have been striped.
Yeah.
You're supposed to get on a bike lane and be able to get somewhere, and they're just basically there, and they don't lead to a park, they don't lead to
And
any place in
that
the
will be,
community.
yeah, that will be addressed with the master.
Anybody else? Javier? Then I got a couple of comments. I think it's awesome. Okay, San Luis, Arizona is the Yuma of the early 1970s. We're a city. We're not a small town anymore. Our residents keep asking for more and more, and everything costs. So we need to involve the community. We need better parks, but everything costs. So one of my suggestions will be, and this is like, it's not at the benefit of developers, which full disclosure, I am one of the biggest one in Yuma County. I think the city of San Luis should consider doing like the county and the city of Yuma and other cities do, even Somerton. When we propose to do a subdivision, any type of subdivision that requires a certain amount of acres in lieu of impact fees, because it can work, because it had worked in other places, is ask for some acreage for a neighborhood park. And that way, we need to phase out having the retentions in parks. This is for the future. We need to start thinking ahead of the game. And they would be one of my suggestions that we should consider doing that, okay? It will help our residents and it will help the developers to understand that we want to come to San Luis, we got to give back to the community. We just, and you know, donated 5 acres in the east side.
Mosquitoes.
And because we want to have a community park for the families in the area. So that's one of the things. Another one, make sure that some parks have, like in Mexico, they have exercise equipment, not fancy, but enough for people to go and do some type of exercises. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it works. It motivates people to go out, walk, and do some type of exercise. Not everybody want to go to the gym. I'm one of those people. And please consider a couple of pet parks. That's one of the things that residents are asking for. They want to take their pets. Some people see their pets as their kids. We have Jenny here. She would like to have a park for her animal sons. So that would be something that we need to do, okay? That is, we need to start thinking about taking care of these issues. With that, that's my 2 cents. Anybody else?
I'm just gonna add, Mayor, I know there are some exercise equipments already located in some parks. That was an item that was brought up, I think, when I recently started in council, and I know there was 6 different machines that were purchased. I walk sometimes in Alegria Park and I've seen them there, so I know there's some already around the community, but I agree, we definitely need a little bit more.
Yeah, in the east side, in Comites 9A and 9B, there's the place. But there's other parks. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, I had forgotten about that. Like I said, I don't exercise, full disclosure. So, and it works, people uses them. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you, Jose.
Item number 2C, discussion and possible directions to staff on any and all matters regarding a tree match campaign for Earth Day 2023 in the city of San Luis. Councilmember Luis Cabrera.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So I had the opportunity to present my 3 items for this work session. And one of the ones that I really wanted to bring up is the tree match campaign for our city. A community leader, some community leaders met with residents, and one of the things that they would like to see more is more trees. I know Mr. Jesse Lopez from PEP in the past has donated some money for trees, and on Earth Day, they do a little celebration and they plant several trees around different areas of the community. But when they first brought this up, it was neat because some members donated some trees. They were able to gather some funds, and people approach me and tell me that they know which tree they donated, and they go and see how much the tree has grown in the past, and they feel proud, and they feel part of the community because they have a tree that they donated, so they call it their family tree. So speaking to these community leaders, I thought it would be a great idea that we come together as a city and we do a tree match campaign. And what I mean by that is, for example, the first 100 families that donate a tree to the city of San Luis to be planted on Earth Day, the city of San Luis will buy an additional 100, or if it's 50, it'll be another 50, and involve the community in this event, and also be able to help our parks with more trees. I know there's trees that are very old and some are dried, so I think it would be a great initiative to have the community come together and feel proud that they are part of this. So buying 1 tree will be like basically buying 2. I did a little bit of homework and I asked Angelica Roldan, she's our acting director of Parks and Recreation, if Parks and Grounds could support us, and definitely, like they've done it in the past, they'll be willing to help us out. Cost-wise, if we go only with 100 trees, it'll be somewhere around $5,000 to $6,000, because every tree is approximately $40 at our local vivero store. Plus, they need to buy the soil, so I think that we can manage to find some funds to get this campaign going early January or at the end of the month of January, so people are aware and they can start donating their tree, or going and selecting it and marking it so they know which tree is theirs, and that way we have an idea. I think we just need to work on the logistics with it with our Parks Department and IT, so we can get the flyers out and stuff like that.
Back in the rhythm here. No questions, but just a comment. I really appreciate this project. This is something that I have also proposed in the past, but not only for parks, but I don't know if is Lujo here? Did he take off?
I think I heard him outside.
Okay, well, I just wanted to comment. You know how they're gonna expand the Cesar Chavez Boulevard? I wonder if maybe lining the boulevard with trees, because there is a lot of people that do walk. So maybe that's something else that, I mean, I know that's in the future, but making sure that it's planned for. That's something that people, there's a lot of people that walk, and I believe that, you know, shaded trees is something that helps our community. So I really appreciate this project.
Any more?
Yes, Mayor. This is a good project, Luisito. And we can even, each one of our council, we can compromise to then donate a tree or 2 or 3 or whatever we can do. We can make a compromise, everybody, that we can help in that project.
I think I'll go a little further. Every one of us that got kids, like I have 3, but they're not kids, they're in their 40s. I'll donate 3 for my kids, so they know they have a tree in San Luis. So I'm asking the rest of you, hopefully you don't have 10 kids, but I'm not looking at anybody,
Mm.
but I think, Luis, is an excellent idea. It's not only making our town look beautiful, is going to give like inviting people to come. Like when you go into Somerton, it has a really good welcome feel with what they done. So thank you for taking the time. It's excellent. On my personal account, you have full support. And I feel the rest of the council feels like me.
Another thing I wanted to add, it just doesn't only look appealing, but it also helps the air, clean the air. We have several children with asthma issues and, with the dust and everything, so that helps a lot, so.
Yeah,
you.
and I mean, I've attended both Earth Days celebrations since I've been a council member, and one of the things that they've told me from parks is that sometimes they would steal the tree. So I think that now people are gonna be more vigilant of where is my tree or how's my tree doing? And they're gonna be more cautious about it. So it's gonna help us keep our trees too, because they're gonna know that they are there because of them.
Yes,
And I know Angelica donated one and Tomas, her baby, so they have their tree in the pet park, I believe. And her husband goes out of his way from work to go check out the tree and take pictures of it. And so I think it's a neat idea.
it's an excellent idea. We thank you for caring enough to bringing it up, and you have full support.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item number 2D, discussion and possible directions to staff on any and all matters regarding joining Yuma County and Somerton for Avenue E corridor and connecting Los Alamos subdivision. Councilmember Luis Cabrera and Eulogio Vera, Director of Public Works.
So I'll take a start on this second item of mine that I asked to put in the work session. So I know Yuma County and the city of Somerton are working in conjunction to having the Avenue E corridor. And I know from staff that we have been looking into either joining or seeing how we can support. I think it's a great idea that we officially make it public that we're willing to work with them and that they know that they have council support. But also let them know that it would be a great idea for us to connect Los Alamos subdivision to this corridor. Not only will it support the residents of Los Alamos, but it will also help the traffic coming into the city of San Luis, because people who live in Los Alamos either come in through 10th Avenue or County 22nd. Now with this, people coming and going from Yuma would be able to access the corridor and get home faster, and also have another way of exiting the city. So when I read about the project, I was very excited to see Somerton already started putting in some money for planning purposes, and the Yuma County as well. So I think if we work together as a whole community and both cities with the county, we can make this a reality for our community, and it's going to help us as well.
Sorry, allow you.
Councilmember Cabrera, I missed the initial part. I was outside with the consultants, but this is a project that Yuma County is pushing forward. And they have kept constant communication with not only the city of San Luis, but also the city of Somerton. It helps city of Somerton significantly on the economic development aspects of it, as they want to connect it near what they're going to be considering a industrial area. I'm not sure what ways we would be additionally, and the YMPO is also a project that's there on the tip, listed as a project. We on ours, we actually on our list of projects, we actually had that project included. But we recently removed it because the county is the one that's spearheading that project. So we do, staff, we have supported the project.
Definitely, Elogio. We're gonna be working with the county and the city of Somerton. They invited us. We need to participate. We need to full participation. And they already working in the design part and we need to join ASAP. The city administrator, Mr. Velez, will lead this. So form a committee who's going to be responsible, but we need to join them.
One more thing that I wanted to add, I didn't include, as far as the connection to Los Alamos, we did add another project back onto that project list. So we did have County 22nd extending it east over to this new Avenue E corridor. But also on the list, we included a project that it's sort of down on the priority list, but it's on there, which would be maybe eventually also a potential connection from the Mesa to the valley along Avenue G. A while back, actually, Councilmember Cruz mentioned it started the discussions and with Ralph. I actually talked to the county. They weren't really against it. It was really just a maintenance agreement that if it was to happen, an investment, because most of it's actually in the county. But at least right now it's back on that list as projects. Actually, in the last week or two, we added those projects back on there.
Any questions for Councilmember Luis? I was gonna call you Luis. Oh, sorry.
Mayor, if I may add a couple comments.
Yes.
Yes, like Eloka mentioned, and Ms. Cruz could attest to this. This has been a project that's been on the YMPO's radar for the past 5 years, and it was something that was Susan's, the county administrator's last project before she retired. So it is something that we as a city are very involved with on the YMPO level, and it's on their monthly meetings. And yes, well, we're in communication with Somerton. We're in the final stages of this whole design project, but rest assured we have been part of this with staff, Elogio, Jenny, all of us with Somerton and the county. But like Elogio mentioned, the county is the one taking over because of the funding part of it. But this is a project that has been a regional important project. Looking forward to the future connection of the commercial port of entry to private vehicles, connecting that to the industrial park of Somerton and through San Luis and Raleigh Airfield.
Great, great. We need to make it official. Let's show that we're very enthusiastic about working on this project. It's really important, like Maria would say, for our region. If no questions, and then we go to the next item. Thank you, Elohim.
Item number 2E, discussion and possible directions to staff on any and all matters regarding a code of ethics for elected officials. Councilmember Luis Cabrera and Kay McQuill, City Attorney.
Good evening again. So this is my third item that I requested for this work session. Looking through our city code, we don't have a code of conduct or norms per se during our meeting. I know that we are all professionals, but even though we are all professionals, in the past 2 years, I have seen how other council members felt disrespected or intimidated with certain type of comments. So starting a new council, I think we need to start on the right foot and work together and know that we are here to support the community and also show respect amongst ourselves. I know Tolleson has a good code of conduct for council members. City of Somerton, I think, established one earlier this year as well. So I think it's good that we do something like that. Obviously, we're not always going to agree on everything, and that's totally fine. But let's treat each other with respect, as well as respect the community that we are serving. There's residents that have complained sometimes that they feel that certain people don't follow the rules from that all residents have to follow, and that's just because of whom they are and whom they know. So I think that it's important that we step back, reflect, and cooperate and work together to conduct or to come up with a code of conduct or code of ethics for elected officials, and also some norms that we should be following during our meetings.
Yes, I did see the Tolleson Code of Conduct. I thought it was a good one. It was to the point and easy to follow. So we can look into bringing something like that back to council.
Any questions, comments from the rest of the council?
Madam Mayor, just a comment, from anyone that complains as a resident, I would encourage them to appropriately file a formal complaint. That way it gets followed up, by city admin as it should be, rather than just, taking their word for it. And everyone approaches us, the store and different public places that we go with different concerns and questions. But, a best practice is to direct them to staff, or in this case for us, to city administration.
First of all, thank you, Tadeo. Thank you, Luis, from bringing this up. It takes courage to be open and talk about these things. And I congratulate you. It's something that we need to talk. We're all adults. We need to act like adults. And the first thing that I expect from all of us, including me, we need to respect the city employees. If you guys have an issue with a city employee, please follow the chain of command. Any one of you have an issue with each other, let's act like grown-ups. We're not in kindergarten. Let's talk about it. Let's agree to disagree. This is a small town. The families we see each other on restaurants, putting gas and going to the grocery store. We're not enemies. I think we all sitting here, we all choose to be here because we want to do the right thing for the city and our residents. So it's like Councilmember Cabrera says, this is a new chapter. Let's act like adults. Let's agree to disagree. And let's not become mortal enemies. And the families of council members and mayors and city employees should be sacred. If we have an issue with, I'm gonna pick on Elogio. It's Elogio, he's a city employee, not his wife, not his kids, his parents. But he has a boss and he's called the city administrator, not us. He's not working for us, okay? He has to follow the chain of command and we need to set an example. That's all I'm saying.
Well said, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Matias, any comments?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for the private one. I was looking for you when I heard your voice. I go, where is he at? And then you appeared.
I apologize. I did send you an email earlier. I am in Philadelphia for realtor related training. So
Oh, yes.
I'm Zooming.
Make sure that they lower the interest rates, please.
Topic of the day today.
Okay. Well, any questions? And then, yes. I call for let's make a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion, a first and a second. The meeting is closed. Now we're gonna open.